Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT coming to you guys to talk some boxing, recapping the Manny Pacquiao versus Jessie Vargas title fight that just concluded. I'm going to get into the undercard fights as well. Hopefully this video and the internet doesn't trip out on me, but we're going to try to make do what we have. We'll start with the main event. Now, Manny Pacquiao, he won the fight, unanimous decision. It was a weird fight, to be honest with you, because the first two rounds, you had Jessie Vargas, who was very patient. He was very tentative. He really wasn't throwing much. Then in the second round, it seemed like Manny was able to cut that distance. And Manny likes to throw that straight left hand from the southpaw position, and then he likes to circle to his right. And Vargas missed. I believe it was a straight right hand, and he missed it by a couple inches. Manny got his right lead foot on the outside, and he was able to counter right down the middle, and he put Vargas right on his behind in the second round. So as I'm watching the second round, and Manny puts Vargas on the canvas, I'm thinking to myself, okay, Manny's 37 years old. Manny's fighting this young champion. Manny's, I'm thinking he's going to make a statement, and I was interested to see how he would continue to do so. And then as the fight went on, I came to a very true realization, and that's the realization that Manny Pacquiao, as much as I like him and as good as he still is, I still think he is a top 5 pound-for-pound fighter in boxing. But as great as he still is, he's a different fighter now, and the way he approaches things is a lot different. Now, he did not stop Vargas. He did leave a lot to be desired. I can't lie. There was a part of me that believed that he could stop Vargas, but he just wasn't able to put the right shots together and get him out of there. Now Vargas did look slow. I believe it was Bradley who mentioned that Vargas had a extra long training camp, because if you guys remember, Vargas was supposed to fight. He was going to go to the UK to fight Kell Brook, and he had already started training for that fight. Then that fight fell apart. Then he got this fight with Manny. So he had a 19-week camp. I mean, that's crazy, because usually camps are 8-9 weeks. That's basically 2 training camps in one. So there was a couple mentions of maybe some lingering effects of training camp. But regardless, even if there was lingering effects, Vargas, while he is a good fighter, I just don't think he would have had the tools to beat Manny. He's a little too stiff, very inexperienced on a big fight stage. And he fought Bradley, had very little success to that 12th round. And then he fought Saddam Ali, but Saddam Ali was nothing more than a prospect. He was the more experienced fighter. Yes, he was the underdog. A lot of people, including myself, thought Saddam Ali would beat him. But when you go from Saddam Ali to Manny Pacquiao, that's just like another stratosphere as far as class and talent. So with that being said, I think Vargas ultimately, while this was a good fight, not the best fight, but it was a decent fight. I think Vargas was just a little too in over his head, and he's still young, and he's still gonna have a chance to be a good fighter in the welterweight division. He's been in there with Bradley, Saddam Ali, Manny Pacquiao. If he can take this experience and use it the right way, and maybe have a shorter training camp, he could do some things in the welterweight division. But more so back to Manny. I want to talk about Manny for a second, because he's a more cerebral fighter now. He's not the Manny Pacquiao from 2009 that was knocking out Cotto, knocking out Ricky Hatton, and all these guys. This guy is a little bit more cerebral. He's a little bit more patient. And, I think, and I'm going to quote Emanuel Stewart. Emanuel Stewart, as you guys know, the great trainer. Emanuel Stewart, I heard him, I forget which fight it was during, but he was talking about Floyd when he was still alive. And he was saying, when you fight Floyd Mayweather, regardless of how you feel about his fighting style, when you fight Floyd Mayweather, that it does teach you something. And while Manny did lose on paper, Manny did get taught something, and that was the art of patience. And he still has some of the best speed in boxing. That's crazy, because Manny has lost so much speed, but he's still about 3 times faster than everybody in boxing, still with all the speed he's lost at his old age. But he can now be patient and pour it on when he wants. And I think that comes with being a older fighter, a more mature fighter. And also, like I said, being in there with Mayweather does teach you a little bit more about being patient. And on top of that, he did have the right opponent there to pick his shots and do pretty much whatever he wanted with. But I thought Manny did a great job tonight. of slipping in good subtle counters like he always does, making sure that he's moving his head off the line so Jessie Vargas wouldn't have a stationary target. Just did a really good job of that and was able to mix in a lot of very, very good punches. So, Manny Pacquiao, he's 37 years old now. He's still one of the best fighters in boxing. Whether you guys agree or not, his resume says he is. I mean, if you think about it, right? If you think about it, Manny Pacquiao, I mean, yeah, he did kind of retire. It wasn't a true retirement, but he retired. But he fought in April. He beat Timothy Bradley, who at the time was a top 10 fighter, pound for pound in boxing. Beats Timothy Bradley for the third time. Then he comes back and he fights Jessie Vargas, who had just picked up the WBO title, had a lot of confidence coming off a knockout win over Saddam Ali, felt like he was, ready for this fight, and he beats him. So look, I'm not going to say that he's fighter of the year because I don't think he is fighter of the year, but there is a legitimate argument that even at 37 years old, with Manny Pacquiao not even delivering anything close to one of his top 10 performances, there's a legitimate argument that in this calendar year of boxing, that Manny Pacquiao has a chance at being fighter of the year. That's just honest truth. Not based on the level of dominance, like not based on like him knocking out anybody out or nothing like that, but just the guys he's beaten and the fact that in both of those fights he beat him pretty soundly. It just wasn't like Pacquiao 2009, 2010. But this is a different guy. This is not the guy who's throwing 1,200 punches a fight. This is a guy who he'll throw his 700, his 600, 800 punches, but they're a lot more selective. And he's a lot more patient. And, I believe he's more accurate. His jab was very accurate tonight. When he fought, Mayweather in spots, and as the fight wore on, he was able to still land his jab very accurately. So I still think, as far as welterweights go, Stephen A. Smith, and I'm going to get into that now, Stephen A. Smith did conduct the post-fight interview, which was interesting because you guys know ESPN First Take, Stephen A. Smith in the past has criticized Pacquiao tons of times. So it was interesting to see that whole dynamic, but he remained professional, asked him the right questions, so I give him credit for that. He asked Manny, that because Floyd Mayweather and Terrence Crawford were both ringside, and these are both fights that people are clamoring for, depending on who you are. That depends on who you are as far as who you want to see Pacquiao fight. But people are clamoring for those matchups for Pacquiao if he's going to continue fighting in. He asked him, Manny, are you going to fight Terrence or Floyd Mayweather? And he gave the whole, have Bob Arum, top rank, pick my fights or whatever rhetoric. But then, credit Stephen A. He kept pressing on. And he said, who do you want to fight, Manny? We know that you'll do that, but who do you really want to fight? And then he really pressed with Terrence Crawford. He's like, will you fight Terrence Crawford? Will you drop down to 140 and fight Terrence Crawford? Because as we know, Manny Pacquiao has been campaigning at 147 pounds. Terrence a champion at 140. So he asked Manny, will you drop down to 140? And Manny said, yes, no problem. I'll go down to 140 pounds and I'll fight Terrence Crawford. And then he was going to continue explaining, and then Stephen A. Smith cut him off, which kind of pissed me off because I wanted to see what he was going to say. But the way he was, I know what he was going to say. He was going to say, I would go down to 140 because that's actually more my natural weight and it's better for me. Because he did say, yeah, that's better for me. And it is, he was going to say it was my natural weight. So, I want to see Pacquiao in there with the top welterweights. Obviously, as you guys know, if you've been following the channel, I interviewed Christina Poncher, who works for Top Rank, about the Terrence Crawford-Pacquiao fight. I interviewed Michael Kantz, who's Pacquiao's advisor, about the Terrence Crawford-Manny Pacquiao fight. I want to see this damn fight. I think, for Pacquiao, a lot of the boxing world doesn't want to see the Mayweather fight. Then there's a big segment that does. I really don't want to see it again. I think that if that fight happens again and it's not exciting, it has huge potential to leave a real bad black eye on the sport. And in a sport that has so many black eyes with corruption and fights that aren't pay-per-view worthy being pay-per-views, there's a lot of things wrong with boxing. There are a lot of things right, but there are a ton of things wrong. And I don't want to see that fight because I know the possibility of that fight being a complete dud is very, very high. So with that being said, I think the Pacquiao-Crawford fight would be very, very great because you have Crawford, who has an exciting boxer-puncher style, young, strong champion. And look, unlike Floyd, he's hungry. He's someone who's clamoring for that big fight to get him to that next level. I personally feel, of all the young fighters right now, guys who are 26 and under, I believe, Terrence is about 27. So guys around 27 basically anybody who's not Roman Gonzalez, because Roman Gonzalez is number one right now. Anybody who's not Roman Gonzalez, of all those guys, I feel Terrence Crawford could be number one in boxing for many years to come. And if he beats Pacquiao, that validates that, and it brings him to that next level. But I would like to see him get that chance because he's been in there with some good names, but he hasn't really gotten that chance to really prove himself and kind of get that fight that'll make him a crossover star in boxing and maybe even beyond boxing, depending on how well the fight does as far as pay-per-view buys. And for Pacquiao, you know, he's 37 years old. People are always going to ask that question, does he still got it? Clearly tonight you saw he does. He's just a different fighter. He's not the 2009 Pacquiao, but he's still a very good fighter. If he beats Terrence Crawford, I'll tell you this right now. If Pacquiao were to fight Terrence Crawford and he beats him, like I'm talking about like legitimately beats Terrence Crawford, no like gift decisions and nothing like that. If he beats Terrence Crawford, like many people in the boxing world think he can, I think, you know, I'm going to, you know, shout out to Precise Presenter, great YouTube channel. I think that would further validate that Manny Pacquiao, and I'm not saying, I want to make this very clear, I'm not saying that he's the best boxer of all time because he's not. But what he would continue to validate is that Manny Pacquiao, without a shadow of a doubt, is the number one pound for pound fighter in the history of boxing. Not because he was able to scale all these weight classes, all of them, from 106 all the way up to 154, beat the best guys in all these weight classes, knocked them out in many cases, won titles, unified, beat Hall of Famers, had great trilogies, pretty much did everything you could do and ever want to do in boxing. And then at 37 years old, you fight a guy in Crawford who's a consensus top 5 fighter. Some people would even say, you know, there's a very small fragment of people that would say maybe top 3. You go there, you fight this guy in his prime as he just beat the best guy in his division outside of himself. And if Manny does that, that validates it to me. Like people have said that before, that Manny's the number one fighter, but if he does that, like literally there can't be an argument. There literally cannot be an argument. The dude's skilled. Name me a fighter who went from 108 pounds all the way up to 154, beat the best guys in the weight class, became champion, had great trilogies, classic fights. You know, the Mayweather fight, you know, that was a farce. You know, some people think Manny won that fight. Nobody, if you think Manny won that fight, you're not going to come to an agreement that you think Floyd won that fight, because honestly, that fight was just so bad. Like, just not even like as a Manny fan, as a boxing fan, that fight was really bad. Like, it was not very entertaining because of, you know, Floyd not wanting to engage. And I'm not saying that Floyd didn't have to, you know, make it a slugfest, but damn, throw a 3-punch combination every now and then. Like, so I mean, it is what it is. But Manny has a chance. If that fight does happen, like let's say he does fight Crawford, if that fight ever does happen and he beats him very soundly, like some people think he can, he has to be the number one pound for pound. Not best fighter of all time, pound for pound, meaning that like if you shrunk everybody to Manny's size and they fought at the same size, same weight, he beats them. That's what pound for pound means. It's a subjective thing. I wouldn't say that Manny is there yet, but you know, if I still think Roberto Duran pound for pound wise is number one, but if he beats like a Crawford in his prime, then I can't really. It's gonna be hard to argue. So yeah, man, Manny Pacquiao puts on a performance that was very good, being that he's 37, showed a lot of energy, a lot of activity against a good, solid champion. I want to say Jessie Vargas was a great champion because he really was not a great champion. He's a B class fighter, lower B class, and some cases high C class fighter. So I knew Manny was going to win. Most people knew Manny was going to win. It was just going to be a question of how. And yeah, he showed he still got it. So yeah, you know, we'll see what happens, man. I know now I want to speak. I know I'm going everywhere, but Vargas. Another reason he lost this fight, aside from the fact that, you know, he had a long training camp. Just speaking from a boxing standpoint, another reason he lost this fight is because when you look at Vargas. And I was even listening because they had Dewey Cooper, his trainer, Jessie Vargas' trainer, Dewey Cooper speaking in between rounds with Vargas. They were showing it on the telecast. He was saying that, you know, that Jessie Vargas needed to stop being flat-footed and get on the balls of his feet. And if you guys look at the eighth round, and even some parts like early in the fight, Vargas was very flat-footed and he was trying to set up that right hand because, as we know, that's his best punch. And really, it's the only chance he had of beating Pacquiao was to land that flush right hand, catch him maybe coming in, and maybe get a knockdown, and you finish him off from there. But he doesn't know how to set it up. And Pacquiao, with his lateral movement, high work rate, was able to just get him, just pretty much have his way with him. My only criticism of Pacquiao was that, you know, I would have liked to see him finish off Vargas at some point in the fight. I really thought that this was an opponent for him that he could finish. Maybe Pacquiao, just like, you know, because they say as you get older, everything declines. You know, Pacquiao's speed has declined. And they say that one of the last things to go is your power. And Pacquiao still has good power, but it's not like the devastating power he had back in 2009, 2010, 2011. It's more than enough power to keep people honest, but it's not the devastating one-punch power that he had in like the Ricky Hatton fight. It's just different. So, you know, take it for what it's worth, but I still think he's a very dangerous fighter. And aside from the guys I mentioned, aside from Floyd and Terrence Crawford, because those are the fights that everybody talks about, the younger guys like Danny Garcia's, the Keith Thurmans, the Sean Porters, you know, all those guys, the Earl Spencers of the world, I think Manny could beat pretty much most of those guys. I would say that of those guys, the only one I would really worry about him losing to would be Earl Spence, because of the body punching. Earl is hands down. Earl Spence is probably the best body puncher in that weight class, and maybe not even in just that weight. Maybe in all boxing. I think Earl has a legitimate case to be the best body puncher in boxing, but he's gonna have to continue to prove that with time. I think that'd be a very hard fight for him. But aside from Spence, there's no question in my mind that he definitely beats Garcia. He beats Thurman, and he beats Porter. And, you know, he's beaten Bradley 3 times. So, I mean, man, I'm just glad that I got to watch him fight tonight. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to watch it, but he did his thing, man. So, you know, shout out to Pacquiao. One criticism I do have of this fight, though, that I know people are going to make videos about in the YouTube boxing community, so I want to just get it out there now before all these videos come out so you guys know that I said it first. They had Glenn Feldman, Dave Moretti scoring the fight, and they had Kenny Bayless as the ref. Now, as you guys know, Dave Moretti and Glenn Feldman are 2 of the most corrupt judges in boxing. You guys know that when you hear those names, it's usually Mayweather fights. Those are the judges he brings in. When Mayweather has the deck stacked against his opponent, it's always that combination. Glenn Feldman, Dave Moretti, and then Kenny Bayless as the ref. And they did it in this fight. And there was one really, really bad scorecard. One judge had it 114 to 113 for Pacquiao. Like, they had Pacquiao only win that fight by a round, which was ridiculous. I don't know which judge it was, but I'm willing to bet money it was probably Dave Moretti. So that's why I got worried. You know, when they announced the fight and I heard that scorecard, I thought, oh, they might rob Pacquiao. But thankfully, it didn't happen, and he got the just decision. So, right. But yeah, I want to see Pacquiao. Obviously, you guys know the Crawford fight is like the #1 fight that they should make, because Manny Pacquiao's natural weight is closer to 140. It is 140. It's a really competitive fight. I really don't know who would win. I lean more towards Crawford, but I'm really not sure. And yeah, that's the fight I want to see. Aside from that, though, any one of the young guys could get it from Pacquiao. I'll love to see those fights. I really don't want to see another Mayweather fight. It was too much of a farce the first time, and I think it really has a chance to do some very, very bad damage to the sport I love the most. So hopefully they don't make that fight happen. But want to move on because, you know, obviously this fight was the main event. I want to talk about some of the other fights that happened tonight, because we did have some. This was a very good card. I got to give a lot of credit to Bob Arum and Top Rank. This was a very, very good card. We had some good notable names, good competitive fights. You know, there wasn't really a fight tonight that's like was really, really great, but there was a lot of good fights. You know, it wasn't like no fight of the year candidates, but it was good fights. It was overall top to bottom, it was a good card. So I want to just give my quick little thoughts on each one of the fights and the fighters' performances and whatnot before I get off of here. I'll start with the first fight. You had Zou Shiming making his this was his second fight in the U.S., and he was fighting for the vacant WBO flyweight title. And this was the title that Juan Francisco Estrada, Gallo Estrada, before he moved up a weight class to go chase Romo Gonzalez, this is a title that he previously held. So before I even get into the fight, I wanted to also say this, that Shiming is campaigning at 112, and in that division, you know, pretty much all the killers have left. Like, you know, Gonzalez, Estrada, you know, it's a lot more thin. The weight class is thinner, so he's in a good position to win some fights in that division and maybe even be a solid champion. But he fought some guy, I can't even pronounce his name. I think his last name is Fafun. He was from Thailand. He has a really weird name. And they actually fought in 2014. Zou Shiming beat him via unanimous decision. So this was a rematch. And honestly, I didn't really know much about. This is my first time really watching Zou Shiming fight. I've heard a lot about him. He's obviously a 2-time gold medalist in China, a big deal over there in China. We haven't seen much of him here in the States. So this is my first real look at him because I didn't watch the fight when he fought on the Lomachenko-Martinez undercard. He's a good fighter, man. He's a solid fighter, but nothing really special. You know, he has a really amateurish style. He doesn't really sit on his punches, so he doesn't get a lot of leverage when he does actually try to throw power punches. So yeah, he's very accurate, but he's not someone who is gonna hurt you. As you guys will, if you go look at his record, he's only pushing about a 25% knockout percentage. So he had a good fight with the Fafun guy. You know, it was a tailor-made opponent for him to look good in the States because he hasn't had too much exposure here. Guy stood in front of him. He was able to pick his shots when and whenever he wanted. Even did a little bit of showboating, dropped his hands and was taunting the guy. It was entertaining. But I would have liked to see him make a statement, you know, get him out of there. But to be honest with you, I don't even think he could have got him out of there just because he doesn't really have. He has good skills that he picked up from the amateurs, but he doesn't have pro techniques. If you guys get what I'm saying, because you guys, there's some guys who just don't make that transition from the amateurs to the pros because it is different. Doesn't really sit on his shots or pivot really well when he tries to throw power shots. So it is what it is. You know, the other dude touched him up pretty badly in I think it was the 8th round. Fafun, he touched him up pretty badly in the 8th round. So the dude doesn't have the tightest of defense. But I will say this win for him at 112, it's going to do wonders for his career because when you look at Zou Shiming, we mentioned that he's actually a 3-time gold medalist, but he's won the gold medal 2 times for China. And with that being said, he's a big deal over there. He has a title now, so the fact that he has a big fan base over there in China, the fact that he's now a world champion, he's now going to use all these things as leverage because he's like the money guy. He's like going to be the money guy at 112. And he can always use that to leverage himself big fights over there. So, you know, more credit to him. He did what he had to do tonight. But the other guy was just like Fafun. He was just like standing right in front of him. He didn't have no head movement, nothing. The guy was basically, I'll put it to you like this. If you took an Everlast punching bag and you pushed it all the way back and the Everlast bag just kept going like this, the Everlast punching bag would have had more movement than the guy that Zou Shiming fought tonight. That's the kind of fight it was. And Stephen A. Smith and Timothy Bradley, who were commentating the fight for Top Rank, they were pleading for this guy to let his hands go. And every time he did, he landed some shots. So, you know, Zou Shiming, he's a cool little fighter. Nothing special. You know, I understand the hype of winning the gold medals, but from what I saw tonight, really wasn't too impressed. The only thing I was impressed with was that the fact that he was able to, you know, and a lot of this might be because of the opponent. So maybe I have to go back to watch some older fights. You guys who are probably seen Zou Shiming fight can probably educate me on him because I've never really seen him fight that much. But Zou Shiming, just not very impressive to me, honestly. I think he's in a good position business-wise because 112 is weaker now with Roman Gonzalez and Estrada being out of division. He can kind of have a title and make a couple defenses. But yeah, not too impressed. Maybe one day we'll go to 115 and fight Gonzalez. I could be a big fight over there in China. So yeah, that's what it is, man. And then we had a fight after that. We had Nonito Donaire, and this was a good fight. Some people even thought this might be a fight of the year candidate, and it wasn't that type of fight, but it was still a good competitive fight. We had Nonito Donaire versus Jessie Magdaleno, and this was an exciting fight. You know, you had Donaire, who, you know, he's a guy that in his boxing career has been a top level pound for pound guy. He's in the, you know, twilight of his career, but still a good fighter. And then you have Magdaleno, who's taking this his first real step up fight, going up in class to fight a guy who some people think is a borderline Hall of Famer. And you know, this is a good fight. I scored it 7-5 for Magdaleno. He won the fight. And I'll put it like this. All right, yeah, we're back. Okay, yeah, what I was saying was this is one of those fights where it really depends on what you look for in a fight. Do you look for the cleaner, harder shots, or is it like the guy who maintains a consistent like work rate and is the more accurate puncher? And Magdaleno, from the word go, he maintained a consistent work rate through 12 rounds. There were some rounds where Donaire landed the harder shots, but for 12 rounds, Magdaleno was the busier fighter. He was laying the more punches, but Donaire definitely had the more telling shots. I think if Donaire was able to land a knockdown, you might have had a legitimate case of him winning this fight. But because he couldn't land a knockdown, I don't think there was a case for him to win this fight. I had it 7-5 for Magdaleno. Now, this is the biggest fight for Donaire since the Nicholas Walters fight right back in 2014 when he lost, and I believe he got stopped in the 6th round. And I think he gave a good account of himself. He's, a lot of people could say this is the end of the road for him. It might be, honestly. I think if he was going to go out, I would. This is actually not a bad fight to go out on, because I know there are probably going to be some people out there who thought he won. I thought Magdaleno edged him, but I have no problem with people who think Donaire won. Magdaleno landed some good counters. Donaire landed some good counters. We just had a good competitive fight. It is what it is, man. I think both guys gave a great account of themselves, and it was a solid fight. It wasn't. To be honest, it wasn't. It was a good fight, but it kind of let me down. I thought it was going to be a better, as far as excitement goes, but it's still a solid fight. That Jessie Magdaleno got basically it was 8-4 on the scorecards, and Donaire even admitted after the fight, he went up to Stephen A. Smith and Brian Kenny, who were commentating, and he said that I woke up too late, meaning that he started off too slow, and we see that with a lot of these older fighters. A lot of these older fighters, it might take them a round or two to warm up, but once they get warmed up, they're fine. And it took him too long to warm up, but once he did, he looked really good. I would have liked to see him throw his right hand more in the first couple of rounds, but when he did, it landed, and it landed with purpose. So Nonito Donaire has nothing to be ashamed of. Aside from that, honestly, I'll tell you guys what I actually got most excited about watching tonight. Obviously, I was excited to watch Pacquiao. He's one of my favorite fighters. I love watching him. And the Shiming fight was whatever. And this Magdaleno Donaire fight was cool. But the Oscar Valdez fight, that was the highlight of this card to me. Wow. Oscar Valdez. Now, I've seen highlights of Oscar Valdez. I studied a couple of his fights just so I could know a little bit about him before this fight. But I never really watched a full fight, live before of him. And so this is my first chance to really get to watch him and break him down and assess him. And I got to tell you guys, I've heard many great things about him. I can see why now. This guy, Oscar Valdez, has a chance to be a very, very, very good fighter. We have a guy here in Oscar Valdez who has a very good amateur pedigree. But with that pedigree, he has this like mean streak in the ring, and he's Mexican as well. So he kind of takes like the Mexican style, but he still blends it with having a good, solid, boxing skills and amateur skills. And you have a complete fighter, man. I think he has a chance to do some serious damage in his weight class against the likes of, Leo Santa Cruz, Carl Fran, and guys of that nature. They're out there for him. He fought Osato tonight, the Japanese fighter, and Osawa's, not no A-class fighter, nothing like that, but he's still a good, solid fighter. And Osawa was very tough, took a lot of hard shots, was able to give him some good competitive rounds. And I think this is one of those fights when you're a prospect and you're coming up, or you're a young fighter and you're coming up and you have a title, what you're looking for is obviously he's a better fighter than Osawa. But what you're really looking for is Oscar Valdez crafty enough? Is he good enough to finish? Can he finish this good, crafty, solid fighter in Osawa? And he showed that he could. He showed a lot of just aggression, a lot of just dog in him. And I like Valdez a lot. He's somebody that I'm gonna be very excited to continue watching. I see why he gets a lot of the hype that he gets now. Yeah, man, Valdez is the truth. I like a lot of what I saw tonight. My only criticism of his fighting style would simply be that he maintains, and Timothy Bradley alluded to this, he maintains the same rhythm. He'll throw maybe like 1 or 2 3 hard shots, but he's not mixing it up. Any of you guys who have ever boxed before know, that once you get like when you fight somebody, if they maintain the same rhythm, you can kind of begin to figure out their tendencies. So the challenge for Valdez will be to mix up maybe like the speed of his punches. the rhythm of his punches, because once he gets up to those higher ranks, when he fights better fighters, you know, they can pick up on these things and they can exploit that and they can use it to outbox him, beat him, maybe even catch him with a hard shot. So his challenge for him would be just to work on that rhythm. But aside from that, the dude can fight, man. The dude's got great power, good boxing skills, defensively responsible. He doesn't trade his defense for offense, picks his shots very well. I like Valdez. I think if you're a boxing fan, if you're someone who's looking for that next, like, pound for pound level type of star, Valdez has it written all over him. If you can't see it now, I don't know when you're going to see it. The dude can fight. So that was probably, to me, the highlight of this card, the Valdez-Osawa fight, just because Valdez showed that he received. So I got to give a lot of credit to him, finishing a good fighter like that. Because Osawa, Osawa has fought overseas, but Osawa has been stopping dudes left and right. And he obviously was very confident. He didn't stop anybody like really good, but still a confident fighter, still someone that can give you competitive rounds as he did. And he showed the ability to finish him. So shout out to Oscar Valdez, and shout out to Top Rank Boxing and Bob Arum, for putting on a good card. Wasn't the best card, but it sure as hell wasn't the worst card of 2016. I'll say that much. So, we had some good fights. We had Pacquiao show that he's still one of the best fighters in boxing. Top class welterweight, gets a unanimous decision victory with Jessie Vargas and puts him on the canvas on round 2. We saw Oscar Valdez show that why he's one of the best in boxing. We saw Zou Shiming, fight like an amateur, honestly. He fought like an amateur tonight. Don't understand the hype outside of the gold medals, but to each his own. And then you had a good competitive fight with Magdaleno and Donaire, where both fighters gave great accounts of themselves, and Magdaleno ultimately tonight. So shout out to all the fighters tonight. Let me know what you guys think about this card and Pacquiao fight with Vargas. Who do you want to see Pacquiao fight? All that good stuff. Leave it in the comments down below. But before I end the video, I wanted to tell you guys, if you haven't already, go on the channel, check out the interviews that I got this week with Shannon Briggs. They've been doing very well. Shannon Briggs, obviously someone who I interview a lot. I've interviewed him like 10 times. He's going to be fighting Lucas Brown soon for the WBA heavyweight title, so that's going to be pretty exciting. That should be taking place early next year, so looking forward to that. Shannon Briggs will be aiming to become the first heavyweight boxer to become a world champion in 3 different decades, so that's going to be interesting to see. Also, Jarrell Big Baby Miller, I saw him the other day, so check that out as well. And we got Chastity Martin, who fought tonight in Pompano. I was supposed to go, but I couldn't make it. Chastity Martin fought in Pompano. Hopefully she won. I got to talk to her soon. And then I also interviewed Amiri Mom. So check those out. Got some great things coming on the channel. Arterias Boxing featured me in a video recently. I got an interview I'm doing tomorrow with Mr. Boxing Today about the heavyweight division. So, yeah, we got some good things coming up on True Squad. Great fights coming up as well. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and enjoyed tonight's fights. Leave your comments down below. Take the time to subscribe, and you can love me or you can hate me, but I'm just a kid from Daniel. So until next time.